I kind of hate that, John, that y'all are running short of time and I'm the last speaker y'all have. Bad gig for y'all. So I've heard it said the key to success in politics is to be brief and to be seated. And so I think in that spirit, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Scott Flippo, and I agree with Senator Brian King. What a great speaker. Mine is not going to be so thorough and so fluent. I've got these nice little note cards here that I read on the way over. One important thing to me, and especially here in Harrison and in Boone County, as I'm from Mountain Home, born and raised in Mountain Home in Baxter County, and I own an assisted living facility in Bull Shoals in Marion County, so I'm fairly familiar with those areas, and this is one of the areas where I'm not. And one thing that is important to me, and I was saying at dinner earlier, is that I want to meet as many people as I can and tell them about who I am as a person, a conservative, and why I'm running for the state senate. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to share those things with you tonight. I'm 34 years old, and I purchased Flippo's Carefree Living when I was 23 and I was fresh out of college. And I'd like to be honest with you and say that I had the Joe Maynard syndrome, and I was just aggressive and ready to go and ready for the challenge of the real world in business. That would be a lie. I bought a business because I thought it was going to be easy and that I came first. And yeah, so I had a lot of growing up to do in that aspect. And one of the things, and it really, where I became as a person, a conservative, it really ties into my experience in business. I say it in jest, but it's actually true. I conducted myself in a way for years that really didn't warrant much respect to people around me. And about 5 years ago, I have my own kind of coming to Jesus moment, if you will. I have a monthly staff meeting the last Thursday of each month, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, I know I'm not happy with where I am in life, in business. I have money, I have possessions, but I have a void in my life. And I knew what it was, is that I didn't have the respect of the people that I worked with. And for good reason, because I didn't give them a reason to respect me. And so I made a decision that night that I was going to go back the next morning, and I was going to start that meeting with my mistakes and my failures, and I was going to hold myself accountable to my coworkers. So that's exactly what I did the next morning, and it was a heck of a lot easier than I thought it would actually be. A big weight was kind of lifted off of my shoulders. It's at that moment in my life where I became a conservative, or perhaps I was before, but that's really when it dawned on me that that's the way to go. Accountability, responsibility, sacrifice. Those are the right ways, those are the right decisions. What I learned in life and what I learned in business is that the right decision is usually the hard decision. And if it was easy, we'd all make the right decision all the time. The need for immediate gratification came at the expense of long-term viability in my own personal life and my own business. And on that Thursday 5 years ago, I knew when I had that meeting that it was not going to be just a flash in the pants, I'm going to do this and go back to my old ways, that I had to make a sustained day in and day out effort to carry myself in a way which was going to warrant the respect of the people around me. Because I can tell you that money and possessions are not going to fill that in your life. It's going to be doing things and conducting yourself in a way which will warrant that from other people. And as with anything in life, you don't pay it. You don't pay for it, you earn it. And so I had to learn that the hard way, but learn it I did. As you're going to hear me talk, you're going to get the distinction that I'm not a professional politician, and so I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, but perhaps it means I'm going to go on a little bit too long, but I'm going to do my best not to. Tonight I'm going to stand before you and I'm going to ask you folks to elect me as your next state senator here in District 17, because I believe that I'm the only real conservative in this race, and I got a lot to offer. Currently, one of the major issues that we're facing is Obamacare and the Medicaid expansion here in Arkansas. And again, had I known how eloquent Senator King was going to be, I would have spared myself on a lot of these bullet points, because he covered them a lot more graciously than I have. Now, if you read any national or Arkansas newspaper, they're going to remind you that Arkansas expanded its Medicaid program through the private option. The Supreme Court ruled that Obamacare was legal. However, it left it up to the states to decide for each themselves whether they wanted to expand Medicaid. Arkansas was one of 26 states that did. I hear a lot as I move around this district, and especially with regards to healthcare and hospitals, about the devastating effects that could come about if we don't take this money, if we don't have this private option. I'm scratching my head and wondering what they're doing in Florida, Missouri, Montana, Colorado. There's a lot of places out there that don't have it.
And I'm fairly comfortable saying their hospitals aren't going to shut down. Folks aren't going to be withering away and dying in the streets. It's kind of amazing. People are fairly resilient and incredibly creative when they have to be. Today, I feel like I am the only candidate that openly states that I'm against the Obamacare private option, Medicaid expansion, and it is my belief that as a candidate, where you stand on this issue of the private option of Medicaid expansion defines whether you want to be a player in the size, in the rate in which we reduce the size of government, or just merely be a player in the rate in which it grows. John Burris has been down in Little Rock, and one of the things that gets my crawl is this guy's, he doesn't look it, but he's actually six years younger than I am. And his experience in life has gave him such that he actually thinks this is a good idea. I've heard this guy talk, and when I listen to him, I almost walk away thinking, yeah, this actually sounds like it could be a good idea. And then I get back into the real world, and I look at my coworkers who I was paying for insurance last year. They lost that. I picked it up through the company, not because I was a great guy, because I knew what kind of talent I had around me, and I was going to do the right thing by him because I wanted to hold on to him. John doesn't know that. John was elected at 22 years old, and he might be a farther ahead of the game than I was, but I can tell you, you got to be humbled in life. You got to have some real world experience to know who you are and what you're about and why you stand for certain things. And I've had those experiences in life, and so this election is going to be a lot more than just this district. This is the future of the state, this is the future of this party, and this is where we're going to be as conservatives and Republicans. And I hear a lot of rhinos and Republican in name only, and one thing I want to assure you all is that, boy, I make Joe Maynard look like Barney Frank when it comes to conservatism. I don't know if there's anybody here tonight that might be any more conservative than I am or any limited government. But I'm excited about it. John Burris, he says a lot of things, and boy, he's got a conservative voting record in a lot of areas that I don't, because he's been down in Little Rock and I've been hacking in the real world down in Bull Shoals, and I got a building full of women, and if you want to talk about experience and how that parlays in the real world, well, let me tell you, walk into a building filled with women, you care for, and I hate to break it to you guys, but the women aren't going to outlive us by about 10 or 15 years, and the older they get, the tougher they get, and so that's just how it is. So where I feel pretty good about getting to Little Rock is that I've kind of got cast iron skin, not even Teflon, they've toughened me up. But that's kind of the real world experience that you can't buy, you just got to go through it. But either way is, now dadgummit, here I am, this is the unprofessional part as I'm losing my train of thought here and I'm trying to follow along as I go, is saying that you're a conservative and at the same time designing, sponsoring, and promoting the greatest expansion of government spending in this state's history. It doesn't make sense to me, or I think to anybody in this room. You can say you're a conservative. You can vote conservatively. But voting is easy. To be a conservative, to walk as a conservative, that's tough. That means sacrificing, that means asking you all to sacrifice, and that means setting the example. And those are things that I'm fairly familiar with within my experience at Carefree Living. It's been difficult, but it's been rewarding, and it's been the right thing. And I could go on all night about talking about how rewarding and how fulfilled my life is, because I got a great group of people that I work with, and they actually respect me and believe in me, and that means a great deal to me. But the road to get there was a long, hard road, and I sure as heck don't ever want to have to go back and travel it again. Not only for my sake, but for the sake of the folks around me. It's tough. Right decisions, conservatism, why people my age are liberal and believe in the democratic philosophy, because it's a heck of a lot easier, folks. For me to sit there in front of my coworkers and hold myself accountable and talk about my mistakes and my failures, it was humbling. And as I said earlier, it was easy. Before I started speaking, it was really difficult. But in doing that, I saw a new way. I saw a transparent way where my actions and my words could be in alignment. And you can do that in your life. Boy, you really don't have to worry about whether people are going to try to influence you or strong-arm you. When I get down to Little Rock, It's not going to be my vote. I had a conversation with a guy with a doctor over at Mountain Home and said, Scott, you know, I like you and you're a nice young man, but one of the things that concerns me is that people that just won't listen to common sense and listen to facts. I said, Dr. So-and-so, I said, I'm a common sense person and I believe in facts. He goes, well, what are you going to do when you get down there to Little Rock and you start reading some things about the private option that you might not have been privy to before this election? And I said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to vote against it. And the point that I'm making with that is that it's not going to be my vote when I get down there. I'm asking y'all to elect me to be the voice, to be your vote. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, I get down there. When I get down there, perhaps I might see or read something that makes me feel differently. My responsibility is going to be voting against it and then coming back after the session is over, talking to my constituents and saying, listen guys, I know I ran as opposed to the private option, but here it is. This is what I've seen, this is what I've read, this is what I've heard, and this is why I might believe differently. Now, if you all can get on board with that or see where I'm coming from, I might have a leg to stand on and going down there. But as far as going down there and running on something, and the private option, Medicaid expansion, is the issue in this race, and there's a lot of other ones, but this is the big one, is I'm not going to sit here and tell you all one thing and go down there and do another, because I actually do understand accountability, and I know it comes from me, and it filters to you all, and it goes to each other, and that this is something that if it's such a great idea, and why didn't we start it with our current Medicaid program? If kicking Medicaid money into the private insurance market is going to save us money and save our healthcare system and do these great things, why not start with what we already have? When I go around and I talk to folks, and I talk to a lot of people in healthcare, and they've all got to benefit from this in some way, or address with me or never have an answer for us, business, and it's common sense, it's not even business sense, it's just common sense. How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to sustain it? What's it going to do to solve any problem? And when I say solve a problem, I mean do away with it. Have a new one. If the solutions to problems is money, we should be just about out of problems right now. And I tell you, it's not the money. It's the lack of accountability, it's the lack of responsibility. Life is tough. It is supposed to be that way. There's a John Wayne quote that says, life's hard. It's even harder if you're stupid. Let me tell you guys, I've traveled that road, and I will attest that indeed it is. Indeed it is. But we got to ask things of folks, and we got to ask folks to sacrifice. I got to ask the hospital in Harrison to sacrifice. I'm going to ask the one in Mountain Home to sacrifice. I'm going to say, before you come and ask us for more money, look at what you have and how it's being spent. If you can look me in my eye and say that you can say without doubt that every dollar that we spend on Medicare and Medicaid and all these other programs, we are getting our bang for our buck, and there is indeed value to each dollar being spent, then I'm willing to listen. I might be willing to give you more. But until you can come to me and account for what you have and the way that it's being spent, I'm not willing to have the conversation about a new program and new debt and more spending and more people on the Medicaid rolls. Because folks, if we were to run our lives, our businesses, the way that they run our government, at best we would be broke, at worst we would be jailed, and most likely we would probably be both. It is right. And so, why I'm running? I'm comfortable with where I am in life. My ego was pretty healthy before I got into this race, and I feel pretty good that regardless of the outcome, I'm still going to be all right with it. But I know who Scott Flippo is. 5 years ago, I couldn't have sat here and looked at you all in the eye and told you about Scott Flippo, because I didn't even know who he was. And once I got to find out who he was, I got to find out that I actually like this guy and I actually respect this guy. And hopefully, as you all see me throughout this campaign, as you all get to know me as your next state senator, that you're going to like this guy too. You might not always agree with this guy, because I find myself in disagreements with myself sometimes. But I tell you what, I want you to believe in me. I want you to know that I'm going to be your voice. When it comes time to voting down there in Little Rock, again, it's not going to be my vote that's going to be in my mind, it's going to be y'all's vote. Where I stand on it, where I side on it, at the end of the day, it's irrelevant. Where do you all come down on it? Where do you all believe in it? I'm going to leave the dance with the ones that brung me. And that's for a very specific reason, because I'm running to be y'all's voice, not my voice. And I appreciate your time tonight, and I'm sorry for rambling on and not making near as much sense or rhetoric as Senator King, but I encourage you all this, is you got 3 candidates in this race. They're probably all good people. But I've had the experience, I've had the life, I've had the good fortune to be humbled, and when I go down there, it does not matter to me which committee I sit on, whatever level of power that you get. I want to come back here and look you all in the eye and say I did what you sent me down there to do, and I want to go back out there to Carefree Living, and I want to talk to my co-workers and my folks that live there and let them know that they can be proud of me, and that the person that came from Bull Shoals and Carefree Living went down there and did y'all proud. Thank you.